Hi, everyone. Welcome back to CAHS Career Prep, where we talk all about how to get you ready for a career in arts, humanities, and social sciences. I'm Maike David, and in today's episode, we will be talking all about resumes, cover letters, and emails of interest. And to discuss this topic, we have professional Maike DeMaria here with us today. Thank you so much for coming, Maike.
Thank you.
Maike is a small business owner with over 30 years of experience in project management, human resources, and compliance. Her volunteer work includes supporting veterans with their resumes and job search and supporting several organizations with visibility and revenue increases. Connecting job searchers with the right company is one of her volunteer emphasis. So it's great to have you here, Maike, and we're excited to talk about resumes, cover letters, and emails of interest with you. I think I've said that multiple times at this point. And you have quite a bit of experience in that area. And so I'm excited to hear your tips and tricks for helping students create resumes that are going to be successful wherever they're applying. And the first thing I want to start out with is, how do you think about making your resume stand out when you're comparing it to other resumes? What are some things that will immediately help your resume to positively kind of look better in that first maybe glance from a recruiter?
One of the first things is that the resume fits the job posting.
Okay.
I can see with one look if somebody just has one resume and thinks they fit all positions
Right.
because the skills are not sorted, the objective is not matched up with what the posting says,
Yeah.
and overall it's that people write about a job description or what they're doing, but they do not emphasize their accomplishments. A resume should not just be about what you did in the past, but it should be about your accomplishments.
Okay.
And this is what would really make the difference. You should have more than one resume. And I can say personally, because I moved around a lot, like you said, I have about 15 different resumes matching different positions I'm applying for.
Yeah, that's great to kind of help students as they're going to apply for those different jobs. When they're doing that, how many do you think they should have like kind of at the ready? So if a student that's going into an entry level position, they're looking for different jobs,
Mm-hmm.
should they do research to kind of find what those positions are that they're looking for and then create some resumes to have at the ready accordingly?
This is exactly it, Nicole, that you. So, for example, for human resource, if you are in human resource, you should have, of course, one resume that matches human resources. But if you have a minor in business
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at a position more in the business environment, like business administration, then you should adapt that a little bit. You would put
Okay.
like the business um, administration part, how to write processes before you put the human resource knowledge
Yeah.
in there. So
Okay.
you would have to rearrange that every time you look at a position.
Okay, that sounds like really good tips to help students like figure out, okay, what are the specific positions that I'm applying for? And part of this is doing your research. You've
Oh,
got to
yes.
do research ahead of time, find
Mm-hmm.
out what the jobs are that you're interested in looking in and kind of the differences between them because sometimes there's smaller differences.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things that I've found, especially in my specific area, which is in communication arts, is that like government positions are typically more public affairs, whereas more industry non-government positions will show more as a public relations.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's even a difference in your job searching,
Mm-hmm.
that type of position and what you're doing with those positions, there are different things about them that you
Mm-hmm.
need to be aware of for sure.
Yeah, and that is really important. The skills section in your resume really needs to be on top. That's the first thing I'm looking at. And talking about public relation, I mean, then you have to adapt the word.
Right.
And then later on in your work experience, you actually have to prove that you did it and have to adapt that. So it all needs to match up.
Yeah.
And that is, I mean, if you think about it, I have 20 seconds to look at a resume
Right.
after I have it in front of me and it comes to the system. And if I see at the beginning there's none of the requirements or not public affairs or communication is right, you might go on the other stack.
Right.
It's just a fact.
Right, because there's only so much time and there's so many resumes definitely, in different searches that people are going through. So, kind of along those lines, let's talk about formatting because I know that formatting is one that there are, and I did some research and have done research on this. There seems to be so much kind of conflicting information on
Mm-hmm.
how to format your resume, what you should have in your resume. Some people have where they say, like, you've got to have a picture. Some people say, absolutely no picture. It's got to be this font or that font. So, what are some things that when students are creating their resume with formatting that are just like, these are good things that you need to do each time?
Yeah. So let me talk about the ones even a creative resume has to have,
Yeah.
because somebody that is a graphic designer would write a different resume, a little bit different than an aerospace engineer.
Right.
But I mean, it's still the rule, like 12 font, Arial, I mean, easy read font. And one of the biggest thing is do not put your own name in a 16 font, because a resume is about you, but it's actually not about you.
Okay.
It's about me, or it's about the company you're addressing it with. So you should have your name, address, mobile phone number, preferably LinkedIn, because no matter what people say, I will look at your LinkedIn and I will also look at your Facebook
Oh,
page. So
yes. Good to know.
everything needs to
Yeah.
have on there. And on the email addresses, you should have a really professional email address and not like funny bear at Hotmail. So it would
Right.
be mdmaria@gmail.com. So that on the email addresses. And resumes, since they need to be made in a way that they're easy reading, use as many bullets
Okay.
as you can use. So if you, after your skills, you just make different columns where you put all the skills in there, and then work experience. And I know especially the younger students, talking about you're just graduating, so you have to think about, do I want to put my classes in there,
Mm-hmm.
what I have or not.
Yeah.
So if you apply for an aerospace engineering job, yes. If you're just graduating, put your classes in, you have.
Okay.
That is really important. And so you have your skills, your work experience, and depending on the classes again. And if you have volunteer experience, that is part of the formatting, put that on the resume as
Okay.
well, but it goes in the bottom. That is all part of formatting. Do not put references on a resume.
Oh, good to know. Should you put, because some people say, like, put that line that says like references upon request. Should you put that? Don't
No,
put that either. Yeah.
no,
I'd read that people say, like, do not put that either.
no,
If they want them, they'll ask you.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I know, some companies still want cover letters and everything. You can put it with a cover letter or with an email,
Okay.
but not on the resume.
When you're sending that cover letter or email of interest,
Mm-hmm.
and some of this stuff may be very kind of straightforward, but what are some things that are like, when you send that email of interest, what should you absolutely have in that email that's important?
Okay, so if you're not referred
Right.
to a job, if you don't have anybody as a reference, you have to have the job posting or the job reference in there in the subject line.
Okay.
You should avoid the word I all the time.
Okay.
You know,
Avoid
it's
I.
like my interest for that position, and almost like in the resume, use bullet points. So you have the job posting, and
Mm-hmm.
then in the email, I mean, cover letter and the email of interest is very similar.
Some.
Have maybe 4 or 5 bullet points why you think you are the best match for that job, and then have in the bottom, I'm happy to, take a call, or I'm happy to come in for further discussion, and here is my email address. Put your email address back in the bottom
In the
of
bottom.
the email, and then a good mobile phone number. If I may add to the phone numbers, please have a good voicemail.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, make sure you've got your voicemail set up that it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't say.
And not a music thing and too long, and oh, I'm not available. Just say, this is Maike. I'm not available right now, but please leave a message.
Okay.
I will not leave a message if I don't have a voicemail because I might have the wrong phone number and I don't want the wrong person to get my message.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's really important. If it's just an automated message, then you might not know that you have the right number that
Exactly.
you're calling. And I think there was, and I don't know if this is trendy anymore or not, because I feel like my voicemail is so basic, but there was a time where it was there would play like music
Mm,
before it was like music
yeah.
while you wait.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that you definitely, while you're applying for jobs, after you're, have
Hmm.
completed the application process, sure, but while you're applying for jobs, that's something you don't want to have, like office waiting type music that's playing.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Again, I have 150 resumes. I go down to 50. I don't have time
Yeah.
to listen to the music.
To listen to the music. Yeah. When they're putting on that resume their education information, I've heard like varying kind of opinions on this. Should your education come at the top, or should your education go lower, even if you're going for an entry level position? Because especially when you talk about the amount of time someone spends on the resume, is that something that needs to be front and center below the professional summary, or not?
Depends on the job posting again.
Okay.
So if it's your entry level job, even an aerospace engineer can have an entry level job. But if that degree is required, especially for job starters,
Okay.
I would put that
At
in
the
the
top.
top. Now, if the I do not, I'm so sorry, I'm picking on the aerospace engineer right now. If the aerospace engineer would apply for a customer service position at Target for the intermediate, then it's not really required and you
Right.
would put it in the bottom. It
Okay.
really comes back down to what job you're applying for.
Okay. And with that, and this is a question that maybe for students that are going into entry level jobs don't approach quite as much, but I think that especially later on, this is something to think about. One of the things that I've seen is taking off the year of your degree and thinking about how many years experience you put on there to avoid like potential for ageism. Is that something that people should be concerned about when creating their resume?
Um, with equal opportunity and everything, you really do not have to worry about it
Right.
as much.
As much. Yeah.
For government contracting jobs, since the experience is important in the job postings, then you might want to
Show that.
show that and add
Yeah.
it to it.
Okay. Okay.
Again, it's about the research.
Yeah.
The research, especially if you want your dream job, is even more important after you have like your basic resume done. Is one of the most important tasks.
Okay. That's very good to know. And how long should it be?
Okay, I know a lot of people talk about
I know isn't
like
this isn't
one
a
page, but
debate of all time.
I would say 1 to 2 pages.
Okay.
So especially even in social science jobs, you have a lot of projects you work on in between, and if this project applies to the job you're applying for, you might have to write a little bit
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
So I mean, I put myself as an example. If I would have a chronological resume, it would probably be 10 pages long. That
Yeah.
is way too long.
Right.
So, and then you switch from chronological to functional resume.
Yeah.
But for starters, if you worked on a lot of projects that apply to the job, it's okay to have a page and a half.
Yeah. Okay. And I think this is something I feel like I know the answer to this, but I think it's good for students to know, because this is a question that I get a lot when they're creating their resumes. Do you need to put every work experience that you've ever had on the resume? If it's not applicable to the job, do you have to put it, if they don't say that it's required? Because I know some jobs it says
Mm-hmm.
you have to put every work experience you've had, but if they don't, do you need to put it? So like if I'm applying for a job as a technical writer at, say, Hexagon, do I need to put the fact that I worked at Kohl's for a summer if it doesn't have any sort of connection whatsoever?
Well, there are two parts to this. I mean,
Yeah.
there are still some HR managers that rather have, every month counted for.
Right.
But what you can do with Coles, for example, and I'm going a little bit away from this. So their experiences at Coles, you can actually convey to your position as a technical writer. I call it the power skills instead of soft skills.
Yeah, I love that.
So there's external and internal customer service, right?
Yeah.
So you can put the Coles experience maybe a little bit smaller,
Okay.
and then, the other experiences when you were a technical writer, and then write your accomplishments that a little bit more. But since I never know what the HR manager really wants, you can maybe make it a little bit shorter of a work experience and write the accomplishments in there, that you helped the 10 customers that were really mad at you, but you provided the great customer service and now they're happy.
Yeah.
So I would add it to it, because you never know who you have.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the length of the job experience or work experience, you might shorten that a little bit.
Okay. And other question that I have, that some of our students, not all of our students, but some of our students are students who are coming back to get their degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so they may have had a gap in their work experience. Because we do have some students who, especially because of where we are, a lot of times we have students who are moving here, with the military, their spouses have moved here,
Mm-hmm.
and they've taken some time off to raise kids or because they were moving around. How do you approach that? Because I know that a lot of students feel hesitation about that. They're like, oh, I have this big gap, 5 to 10 years where I wasn't working because I was at home taking care of the kids. I don't know what to put on my resume because all they're going to see is this big gap, and they feel a lot of kind of strife about what to do. So how might they approach that in the resume?
Okay. This is when the skills section is even more important.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a spouse myself, so I have gaps because we moved back and forth. So I made sure that my skills are staying out and really match the posting. And if the skills match, you will, overall, you will still be invited for an interview.
Okay.
And the worst thing is to make things up.
Right.
So
Yes.
do not make anything up. I mean, if a good HR manager can read the resume the right way,
Right.
since a resume is not just the work experience but your accomplishments. So yeah, if you have good accomplishments for the times you worked, you're fine.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about those skills. You talked about them as power skills, which I love that switch from soft skills to power skills. What are some ways that students can think about those power skills or power words in creating those for their resumes? Kind of how do they maybe come up with those
Mm-hmm.
or think about them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna use customer service skills as an example. Okay. People say that's a soft skill. That is actually a power skill.
Okay.
Because that is relationship, that is conflict management, and all of this is the package.
Right.
I think a good example is a lot of students might work in the fast food
Okay.
field,
Yep.
which is actually very challenging and it's a hard job.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
yes.
you have to prepare the food, so there are health
Right.
regulations up there. Customer service, people are not very patient.
Right.
You have to handle the money. So this is why I call them power skills.
Right.
Handle financial transactions, big deal. So
Yeah.
when you put in the skills, financial transactions, and then you match it up with your work experience.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, in McDonald's in the morning at 7 o'clock, you have people after people coming through. And this is
Definitely.
why that is a power skill.
Yeah.
To not make a mistake, that is awesome. So you can
Yes.
put in financial transactions under skills, and then in the work experiences, you would put in handled up to 1,000 financial transactions per day.
Okay. Yeah.
How does that look? Oh my God, 1,000. Yeah. And this is
yeah.
the key is that it has to match up.
Right.
And to be detail oriented is really important at that. And if I mention that, make sure spelling is right.
Okay.
And we
Definitely.
talked about that earlier. If the
Yeah.
word detail oriented is misspelled,
It's not
I
good.
will not look at the resume any further.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
but being detail oriented, it's a power skill.
Yeah.
Technical writer is what you said. It's so important that you really do the right job up there. So
Yeah.
it's the financial transactions. And The other thing is Microsoft is really important, computer skills,
Okay.
right? So the key is really you have to ask yourself, do I have knowledge? Am I advanced? And am I an expert?
Yeah.
That again has to match up with a job posting.
Okay.
So you really have to ask yourself what to do. After the research you do for a job, really write down all the skills you have and at what level you're at.
Yeah.
And I mean, and then the rest will come by itself.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball because this isn't on our questions, but I thought about it while you were talking when we were talking about power skills and power words. And this is something that's become a little bit, I think, almost trendy in the past few years, which is
Mm-hmm.
getting certificates. And so
Mm-hmm.
getting certificates in different areas.
Yeah.
Do you think that that has value on the resume? And what are maybe potentially some certificates for students who are in our area, which is essentially the liberal arts, might help them in getting jobs, especially in our kind of the area we're in here, which is very STEM based in a
Yeah.
way?
Okay. Certificates are very important.
Oh, okay,
They
good.
are very important
Yeah.
and they are an added value. So with liberal arts, you also have a lot of data, data
Yes.
analytics. So
Mm-hmm.
that would be, you can get quick certifications in SQL, Tableau. I mean, even smaller project management certifications. This is what employers, especially here in Huntsville, are looking for.
Yeah.
Since we're so government contracting heavy, it's just a fact.
Right. It
That,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's just a
that
fact of
is
the
a lot
area.
of the things that government requires, and if you have that extra certification, totally put that under the skills.
Okay.
That's an add-on, and actually, I know that from my own daughter who did that on the side, you can do that for a really small amount, an extra certification. And sometimes
Yes.
they come for free too if you volunteer somewhere.
Yeah, and I think that's great to look into it, to look at your specific degree and what particular certifications might assist you with that degree. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's something that UAH has different certifications that students can get. There's
Mm-hmm.
also online formats of different places where students can get certifications.
And if I may add to it, when you're not done with your degree yet, and you still have some electives
Yeah.
left, and what about ASL, sign language? Think about an elective that can take you the next step in your job.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thinking strategically about the electives that you're taking and how those electives are going to connect to the
Mm-hmm.
job that you want, because really that's what this is all about, and kind of what we've been talking about is the fact that wherever you are in your college, kind of your
Mm-hmm.
college career, you want to be thinking about your career after college as
Mm-hmm.
well, because they go hand in hand.
Yeah, and that is an add-on for the resumes too. Foreign
Yeah.
languages is becoming more and more important because of
Yeah.
global. I mean,
Okay.
we have German companies here. We have companies from Canada. I mean, a lot of European companies, Asian. So if you have the opportunity for another foreign language, that's an add-on on
Oh,
top of it.
that's great. Yes. And I'm gonna plug UAH again. We do have lots of courses in world languages and cultures, and check them out. Our professors are excellent in those, so that's really helpful for students, definitely. So when you're going from the resume to then the cover letter, I think one of the issues that students have a lot of times is how do you distinguish between the two of those? So what should I put more in the cover letter that I'm not putting in the resume? Kind of what do I do in that cover letter in order to make an impact if I have the chance to write one for
Okay,
the application?
so cover letters should still be short and swift, easy to read.
Okay.
I call it, it's like a sandwich letter. I
Yeah.
think we all know it. It's a little intro.
Yep.
My I'm applying, or my expertise would fit to the position as an aerospace
Yeah.
manager, and here are the reasons why, and you
Okay.
put 3 or 4 bullets. Maybe you had a project, so you can take some of the things from the resume in there, but not more than 4 bullets
Okay.
that really stand out, kind of like put them in the middle. And then, like, I'm looking forward to hearing back from you, assuming that's already the right bullets.
Right.
And that's a sandwich, because you have the meat in the
Right. In
middle
the
and that
middle.
are the bullets.
Yeah.
And that's all what you need for the
Okay.
cover letter. The cover letter and the email of interest, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah. Okay. And when students are creating, so let's say we talked about earlier that, they're creating a resume for potential jobs. So they've
Mm-hmm.
got several ready to go. Should they have a matching cover letter for each of those as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Okay.
Do not do one for all.
Right.
And I will catch it, because the worst thing is if you do not print it out, you should name the company again.
Yes.
Can you imagine? So I'm
You get the
applying.
name of another company.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Seen
Don't do
seen
that.
it all. Seen it
Yeah.
all. The other thing is what I would recommend. Sometimes the cover letter has, or even the email on there. Well, actually, the email should never have it on there, to whom it may concern, unless it's to an HR email.
Okay.
Do your research, if you can, who you address it to.
Yes. Yeah. If you can find out who specifically is the person that's going to be looking at
Mm-hmm.
them, having that name is so much more connected,
And
and it shows you took the time.
yes,
Yeah.
and do not just address them by their first name.
Yes.
You
So
never know who you're talking to. It
yes.
should be good morning, Miss DeMaria, and all this. And this is when the Miss and do the from women do MS
MS.
instead of the
MRS.
Miss, because you
Yep.
never
You don't know.
know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of, especially in the professional field, a lot of women go by Ms.
Mm-hmm.
MS, not MRS, even if they are married. I go by Ms. MS, and that I have even gotten into sometimes a debate with students a long time ago that they were like, "Why don't you go by Mrs.?" And I said, "Because that's not how I want to be
Mm-mm.
professionally referenced." But that's something that you have to really make sure that you're
Yeah.
careful of that.
And I take my name as an example. Sometimes people do not know that my first name is female,
Yeah.
because I'm from a different country. So if you cannot figure it out, do not use Miss or Mr. and all that at all. Dear Maike DeMaria.
Just skip
Some
it
things,
completely.
it's
Yeah,
like
if
with
you
what,
don't know, skip it completely.
because there's
Yeah,
some names like Taylor, and there's some
that
names that
you
can
don't
be
know. Yeah,
represent.
and you don't want
Nope.
to you don't want to assume, because that is something that if you don't know for sure, you don't want to make that assumption, because even if you did it by accident, it's still for that other person puts that little bit of like negative kind of
Mm-hmm.
connotation in their mind, and you don't want to do
Yeah.
that whatsoever.
And
So
you don't
yeah,
want to just say hi.
yeah.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's up?
Yeah.
Here's my resume. Right. Yeah, you want to be very careful about that, and make sure definitely you put like that introduction salutation. Yes,
Yes.
I remember very specifically I don't even know if they do this anymore in elementary school, where you had to like write the letter with like the salutation and then the middle part and then the
Mm-hmm.
ending, and you put the sincerely, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
and all
and
of
you
that.
don't, like, I use respectfully a lot. I
Okay.
mean, you don't have, I mean, you can adapt that.
Yeah.
And one other thing I have for the resumes, cover letter, and emails, how or people tend to look at thesaurus.
Yes.
If it's not a word you usually wouldn't use, don't re- don't use it.
Yes.
Don't replace a word just because it sounds better.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, know the words that you're using. I always think, I don't know if you may not have seen this episode, but I always think of that episode of Friends. There's an episode from the show Friends where one of the characters, Joey, is writing a letter for Monica and
Yes,
Chandler for
yes.
adoption,
Oh,
and he uses a thesaurus and changes his name to Baby Kangaroo. And I always think of that. Like they're like, no, like this is
mhm.
not like just because you have it to use doesn't mean that you should use it. So you
Mhm.
want to think about you want it to sound like the professional you,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
best you is what you want it to sound like.
Yeah. And one other thing with all of them too, when you make it after the resume to the interview, whatever is in the resume or the cover letter, you have to be able to talk to it.
Yes, I think that's one of the most important things, because a resume is really moving you towards hopefully the
Mm-hmm.
interview. And so you want to know what you have put in that resume and how you can then translate it into the interview. And that's one of the things, like when I talk to students about creating even like potential questions for an interview,
Mm-hmm.
go back to your resume. What did you talk about with the skills
Mm-hmm.
you had? Be able to detail those out because they will ask
Mm-hmm.
about them. And I even have had that happen before. Way back when I was interviewing for a position as a lecturer, I had a public relations course that I had
Mm-hmm.
taught, and in my mind, I mean, yes, I taught that course, but I taught it for like 5 weeks in the summer once. Barely remembered it, but it was on there. That was the first thing they asked me about.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it. I knew they'd ask me about it because it was like the smallest thing. So I was prepared, but I was like, I know they're going to ask me about that because that is it's like a random like one-off
Mm-hmm.
course that kind of fits with some of the other courses I had taught. But it's you need to really think about that. Don't just fluff things up in your resume
Mm-hmm.
to make it sound really great and then not
I agree.
talk about it. Well, this has been great. Do you have any last advice for our students when they're putting together resumes, cover letters, or emails of interest?
Well, there are so many opportunities out there. It's really not that hard to get your dream job, but pay attention to the detail. Do your research. And like I said, not one resume fits all. That is just the thing. And you have the power with the skills to
Right,
put in there, but make it match. If I'm a plumber and apply, I cannot just apply for an electric job. I mean, the
right,
pipes are different.
right.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
So, but I mean, if be as professional as you can. It's okay to be a little bit over the top when you go into the interview. That's already 60% of the battle.
yeah,
So, I mean, and like I said, have somebody else read over your resume, print it out. Yes, it sounds old fashioned to print it out, but
yeah.
it's really important because you will catch the
More.
mistakes.
Yes, yeah. And I
And
think,
and I was guilty about that too. One time I'm like, I the system doesn't catch everything. I wanted to use the percentage sign and didn't hit Alt, and it put the number in there, and the whole sentence didn't make sense anymore.
oh, yeah,
Caught it too late.
yeah. Oh, yes. And that is heart wrenching when you catch it after the fact and you're like, oh, well, now I see it. But yeah, definitely having it checked. And one of the things that we have for students at UAH is we have an overall university career services where students can take their resume to have it checked. And you also can take that resume as well to our career and internship coordinator, which is me, and I will look over it as well. But it is something that I recommend to students because sometimes students will send me a resume through email, and I'm fine to do a quick glance over that resume, but setting up a meeting and coming in and seeing me so we can kind of walk through it together and make notes on it
Mm-hmm.
is going to give you even more assistance to help make sure that it's the best resume that it can be.
Oh, one thing is when
Yeah.
you send in resumes, PDF.
Yes, PDF
No,
because it holds the formatting.
yep.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Send it as a PDF for the resume, the cover letter, all of that to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
the formatting holds because it will adjust without you realizing it.
And
Yeah.
that will look very interesting at
Yeah.
times when it comes.
Especially Google Docs. I don't know what it is about Google Docs, but
Mm-hmm.
that happens, I think, almost more often with Google Docs than Microsoft Word,
Mm-hmm.
that the formatting somehow adjusts
Yeah,
and it looks all of a sudden, it doesn't look the way that you thought it did. So,
yeah.
yes, definitely download it to a PDF. Well, thank you so much,
Well,
Micah,
thank you,
for
Nicole.
being here today to talk about resumes, cover letters, and emails of interest. We would also like to thank our sponsor, Blue Summit Supplies, for the wonderful facility we are in and the resources to make this recording possible. A special thank you to our assistant media writer, Macy Morgan, video producer and editor, Jesse Hendricks, and producer, Grace Trutel. I'm Nicole McDavid, and we'll see you next time for more CAHS Career Prep.